From the perspective of evolutionary psychology, we can think of the human thing relationship as a product of our evolutionary history. This means that the way we interact with objects today, exactly in the modern time, has deep roots in how our ancestors adapted to their environment. In this case, there are some key points. The first one is that evolutionary psychology evolutionary psychologists argue that our minds have been shaped by natural selection in order to interact with the physical world in specific ways. For example, we have developed skills to recognize and identify objects, manage them, and even form emotional connections with them. Another point is that studies suggest that humans have an inherent tendency to ascribe meaning and significance to objects. This likely stems from our evolutionary past. For instance, research shows that people who form stronger emotional bonds with objects are more linked to significant life events or symbols of loved ones. This indicates that our relationship with objects may have evolved as a way to maintain social connections and navigate our environments. And the second point, from point of evolutionary psychology, is that a key insight from evolutionary biology is that the human object relationship is not something that happened recently. Instead, it is an evolutionary product of our species. What does it mean? For example, developing tool-making skills and useful objects for specific purposes were crucial for our survival and success. This legacy continues to shape how we interact with the material world today. There are some major enhancements in cognitive evolution. Professors Thomas Coolidge, in fact, Frederick Coolidge, sorry, and Thomas Wien highlight two major advancements in human cognitive, uh, or in fact, two of the most salient transitions in hominin cognitive evolution. These professors and, in fact, pioneers believe that hominin refers to modern and extinct humans and their most known or suspected distinct ancestors. The earlier Australopithecines, who had brain sizes in the range of modern chimpanzees around 400 cc, uh, but just some of them made and used stone tools. Their smallish bodies, compared to their longer limbs, indicate that they traveled on the ground while foraging, but probably slept in nests in trees, like modern chimps. They had varied diets that probably included some meat, but they seemed to be very ape-like in terms of brain size, brain shape, and behaviors. The stone tools of them and also habilis were relatively simple. A thing like this. Uh, so the stone tools were simple, such as sharp stone flakes struck from a pebble core. So there is nothing known about the earliest technology that would have chosen for the increase in brain size. After that, there is Homo erectus. There is Homo erectus, as you can see at this part of the in fact hominin evolution. About 2 million years ago, a significant leap occurred with the emergence of Homo erectus. These species evolved from smaller brained hominins. Uh, these species evolved from smaller brained hominins in comparison to earlier species like Australopithecines, which are in fact the members of the genus Australopithecus. Um, they had larger brains but smaller bodies. Homo erectus demonstrated a different cognitive capacity through tool making. Okay, and the second major leap. So at the first leap, we had the emergence of Homo erectus in around 2 million years ago, and I told you that we had tool technology at this time, which I will um, I will tell you later that which is in fact the type of tool technology of the Homo erectus and what are in fact the significance of this specific stone tool technology in fact. The second major leap in human cognition happened in 200,000 years ago. Professors Wien and Coolidge employed an established cognitive theory, that of executive functions, to understand changes in the archaeological record. They reasoned that as a result of the high polygenetic heritability of executive functions, a recent genetic or epigenetic event in the lineage of Homo sapienses might have enhanced executive functions. For example, such as in fact sequential reasoning, inhibition, organization, and planning uh, beyond what was then the hominin standard. The production and use of hafted projectile points dating back to about 100,000 years ago appeared to us as evidence for sequential reasoning and memory. In other words, a complex linkage of technological steps. The archaeological appearance of bow and arrow technology about 66,000 years ago we viewed as evidence for complex sequential reasoning. The practice of agriculture requiring planting, cultivation, and storage appeared to us as an excellent representative of a task of inhibition, as it required delaying the immediate gratification of eating seeds in order to plant them and harvest them over in fact varying lengths of time, right? Which yeah, which began about 12,000 years ago. There is also archaeological evidence for hunting reindeer by interception about, in fact, 17 years ago, and desert traps that remotely captured game appeared about 10,000 to 7,000 years ago. Both of these hunting behaviors required sequential reasoning, in fact. Well, well, we have, in fact, major advancements such as working memory that I will explain a little later. But what about cognition in Acheulean and Oldowan stone tools? In fact, we know that there is in fact, 3.3 million year history of stone tools, and till now we found that in fact there are some specific cognitive capabilities in humans, in those who made Acheulean tools, and indeed there have been some specific cognitive capabilities in older one tools, right? So let's talk more about differences in cognitive of humans who made Acheulean and older one tools. Older one tools, um, in fact, were made about 2.6 million years ago. Renfrew, Colin Renfrew, highlights the central role of cognitive processes such as memory, attention, and problem solving in shaping the production, use, and transmission of material culture. For example, the creation of simple stone tools or older one tools, which, as I told you, dates back to around 2.6 million years ago, is considered the earliest implements made by early humans, including stone flakes, stone knives, and cores. These were created by striking a pebble or rock with a hammer stone to detect flakes and form a sharp edge. The production of these primitive stone tools required only basic skills such as manual dexterity and learning through observation and imitation. So, tool complexity of Oldowan stone tools is considered just as sharp stone flakes struck from a pebble core, in fact, and the amount of cognition that was needed, in fact, for those who made this type of stone tool was just, in fact, learning through observation and imitation, like chimpanzees, for example. But what about Acheuleans? Meanwhile, in fact, the hallmark of this technology in Homo erectus is the hand axe, which Homo erectus made by trimming around the margins of a large flake to produce a sinuous cutting edge. In doing so, they also impose a bilateral symmetry on the tool. Its manufacture clearly required special cognitive abilities such as the active coordination of dorsal and ventral information from the primary visual cortex, and also hierarchical organization of, in fact, action that also relied on mechanisms of cognitive control whose use was not evident in the stone tools of earlier hominins. Homo erectus was not just a variant on the standard ape. Rather, it was something altogether different in its morphology, behavior, and cognition. A number of evolutionary uh, firsts were associated with Homo erectus, um, are included dispersal, dispersal out of the tropics and into cooler habitats, modern body size and locomotion, including running, for example, and in fact, this one. But okay, okay. Uh, I spoke a little about the, in fact, major advancements or enhancements, in fact, in human cognitive evolution. I told you about the executive functions, um, in fact, making bow and arrow, agricultural practice, and half the projectile points, right? Um, in fact, but for more explanation in this regard, I would tell you that developments in executive functioning occurred relatively late in human cognitive evolution. The cognitive model examined here focuses on the function of working memory. Working memory. Uh, This function of working memory, referencing a period between 100,000 to 200,000 years ago, during which memory capabilities improved, contributing to the modern cognitive abilities of Homo sapiens. One outcome of enhanced memory performance is the expansion of, in fact, phoneme storage and the understanding and creation of language. Additionally, the creation of jewelry, paintings, ritual burials, archaeology, sorry, and in fact, symbolic sculptures all began around 100,000 years ago, which indicates a significant cognitive shift both culturally and biologically. Both culturally and biologically. Professor Thomas Lin is among those who consider the mind a crucial variable, in fact, variable in cultural evolution by studying the tools from the Archean period and utilizing Piaget theory. He views the markers of late Archean tools as possessing greater cognitive abilities that required a more complex spatial understanding compared to older one toolmakers. This major difference results from evolutionary changes in physiological and psychological traits, such as during this period, the prefrontal cortex became more active compared to the older one era, which led to improved executive functions such as eye-hand coordination in humans. Okay, uh, I would you believe that since cognitive archaeology basically is an abstract field of study, you have to, if you are really interested in studying in the field of cognitive archaeology, you have to be sure that all aspects of this subfield of archaeology has been have been covered. In fact, this is why I explained um, some of aspects of cognitive archaeology before starting exactly the cognitive archaeology. What is cognitive archaeology, in fact? And I would ask you believe in materials I provided for you before, in fact, this slide. But what is cognitive archaeology? Cognitive archaeology or mind archaeology or the study of mind or ancient mind is a main branch of prehistoric archaeology that focuses on the evolution of the human mind. To study the evolution of mind, a researcher must obviously know about mind, and this is why archaeological studies from a cognitive perspective refer to the interdisciplinary um, interdisciplinary and theoretical use of several sciences such as cognitive science, genetics, anthropology, neurology, evolutionary biology, psychology, philosophy, and even linguistics. Uh, you may ask, uh, what are the aims of studying material culture? Okay, so before that, I would, in fact, talk about the reasons, the goals and purposes why we study ancient mind, why we study in fact, the way of evolution of cognitive human cognition. In fact, we study the ancient mind to know how early cultures functioned and understood their surroundings. Uh, we would know the evolution of human mind and culture. So, mind and culture, in fact, material culture, are in interaction, right? The evolution of the cognitive and social skills of past and contemporary humans that are not the focus of various sciences such as contemporary psychology. So, before continuing, I would, in fact, ask you to know that, in fact, while we say that cognitive archaeology is a subfield, is a theoretical, in fact, perspective for studying the prehistoric archaeology, I would assure you that while we tend to study the prehistoric archaeology, but if you are interested and your eagerness of study of, for example, historical archaeology or even contemporary or modern archaeology, this subfield works, in fact. Why? Because we are continuous of the root of, in fact, prehistoric humans, right? Prehistoric, in fact, ancestors. So by the study of um, prehistoric, our prehistoric, in fact, ancestors, you can find the cognitive archaeology of historic eras or evenly contemporary archaeology. So keep in mind that cognitive archaeology is not just the study of ancient minds in the prehistoric time. Okay. So another point is that another point is that it is focusing on the development of domain of specific cognitive abilities, including theory of mind, visual perception, language, numeracy, literacy, which will be realized the evolution of each of these concepts throughout the time. So if you are interested in each of these keywords, terms, and concepts, for example, visual perception of a group of people in the past, the invent of language or numeracy or literacy in the past societies or any other concepts you are interested. In fact, cognitive archaeology works for you. Okay. And also, cognitive archaeology is divided into two main groups of cognitive archaeology: evolutionary cognitive archaeology, nouns as ECA. So, when we say ECA, it refers to evolutionary cognitive archaeology. And the second one is ideal cognitive archaeology, or ICA, which at this course, at this program, our focus is on the first one, ECA, or evolutionary cognitive archaeology.